And the people of Axbridge are no mere actors. Axbridge today will bring to light the Axbridge of all their yesterdays. Historians now admit what ordinary people have always known, that history is the history of the common people. Not the dukes and duchesses, not the clever politicians, the ordinary people, our ancestors. You will see some great names, of course. St. Dunstan, King John, Hannah More. But they are important to us only because once they came to Axbridge. This is the story of the people, told by the people themselves. Back then, 2,000 years, to the time of the Caesars.
Before the Romans came to Rye and on the Severn Road, there was no Axbridge as you might recognize. A few huts at the edge of the marsh lived in by the British. Far from savages, though, a civilized people, nature's nobility, peacefully working their land and trading with distant countries. 'Twas that trade that was to be their downfall. For Emperor Claudius heard tell of the mineral wealth that lay down unlamented. Soon the gold mines of the Roman Empire was to fall on this quiet sea. Indeed, for the precious lead and silver of our hills.
Their despair and helpless hatred were overwhelming. of Axbridge, the birth, the fortified place on the River Axe.
One thing shone through all those dark years, the beacon light of Mother Church. But men questioned even her authority. And to tell the truth, the monks were not always everything they should have been.
Gunther was a Benedictine monk, the Glastonbury man. He set to reform the Benedictine order and enjoyed the friendship and support of King Edmund. But 4 years after Edmund came to the throne, they quarrelled violently, and Dunstan was banished from the court.
But only 3 days later, let the 15th century Axbridge Chronicle take up the tale.
Height, which being separated at its summit, reveals to the spectator an immense precipice and horrid abyss, called by the local people Cheddar Cliff. When therefore the king was chasing the flying stag hither and thither, the stag, on coming to the chasm hidden in the mountain, rushed into it, and being dashed to pieces, perished. Similar ruin overtook the pursuing hounds. The horse, too, having broken its rein and becoming unmanageable, carries the king after the animals. The abyss being opened before him threatens the king with instant death. He trembles and is in great distress. Meanwhile, his recent injustice to Dunstan comes to his mind. He bewails it and instantly promises God with an unspoken vow that if only God would avert the death which deservedly threatens him, it should be speedily remedied with manifold recompense. God, immediately hearing the repentance of his heart, took pity on him, inasmuch as his horse stopped short. The king, delivered from the danger of death, most truly gave thanks to the glory of God from the depths of his soul. Then the king, returning to his lodgings, that is, to the borough of Axbridge, and being rejoined by the nobles, recounted the course of the things that had happened, and commanded that Dunstan should be recalled with honour and reverence, and thenceforth held him to be a most faithful friend in all things.
made Johnson out of the Glastonbury with the power and the position he needed to reform and reinforce the monastic idea in English monasteries. Years later, Dunstan became Archbishop of Canterbury, and at last was made a saint, a triumphant career that began here in the royal forest of Mendon. The Normans, like the Saxons, found the hunting good. Look now to King John's hunting lodge.
granted Axbridge its very first royal charter, granting its 32 burgesses many rights of self-government. Not only King John, but many other monarchs were generous in granting royal charters to the towns, extending its rights and privileges. Henry III's charter of 1229 still exists, complete with the Great Seal of England. In 1557, Queen Mary and her Spanish husband Philip granted yet another, the Charter of Incorporation, empowering Axbridge to continue as a free corporate borough, with its mayor, burgesses, bailiff, 2 constables, and other officers. As the Charter puts it,
whereas our borough of Axbridge in our county of Somerset is an ancient borough, always having within it 32 men called burgesses, from time to time elected, nominated and appointed out of the more discreet and honest men, there may be and shall be 14 of the elder and principal and better and more honest of them, who shall be called the aldermen.
That they may and shall have a common seal to serve for the transacting of their causes and businesses. That seal is the land and flag, a symbol of St. John the Baptist, which you can see about you on the banner. In 1599, in gratitude for Axbridge's loyalty during her long reign, and with characteristic shrewdness, the first Queen Elizabeth granted Axbridge another charter. This is a great day for our proud borough, and most of all, for those of her citizens called upon to take the reins of office. The roll is called by our first clerk, John Whiting.
Mayor and Clerk of the Market, John Boylesy. First Alderman, Richard Fuller. Capital Burgesses, William Brodie Sr., William Brodie Jr., Walter Durbin, John Bourne, Thomas Hall, Jasper Rentmore, Jasper Rentmore, Richard Price, and inferior burgesses, William Jones, bread taster, Christopher Wilmot, leather warden, Christopher Sadler, ale taster.
Elizabeth, by the grace of God of England, France and Ireland, Queen, in order that the borough may hereafter be and remain a borough of good peace and quiet, to the dread and terror of evildoers, and as a reward for the support of the good, do assign, constitute, nominate, and make our beloved John Boylesy to be and become the first and present mayor, and make our beloved Richard Fuller to be and become the first and present alderman. And then the said capital burgesses shall continue in the same office so long as they shall behave themselves well. It shall be lawful for the common council of the borough to hold and keep yearly forever 2 markets in every week, and 4 fairs to be holden here yearly. Witness ourselves at Westminster the 23rd day of February in the 41st year of our reign. God save the Queen! God save the Queen! God save the Queen! God save the Queen!
Let the news fly to every corner of the kingdom. Axbridge is a royal borough. 1623, extended Axbridge's authority over West Street. For, as he said,
we are regularly informed that in the street called West Street, many riots, routs, unlawful assemblies, contentions and offences are committed by divers disorderly persons.
within a few years the country was torn apart by the horrors of civil war.
It was a terrible time. Some were for king and some were for government. It sent father against son and brother against brother.
Axbridge itself seems to have been undecided which side to support. In 1643, the town gave 12 shillings, a goodly sum in those days, to help Bristol defend itself against the dashing royalist cavalry leader, Prince Rupert.
Here they are, levelling the score by paying another 12 shillings to Richard Strode for beers for the ringers at the coming of the Queen to Axbridge.
But not everyone agreed, and even now a few angry Protestant voices were raised against the Queen. brother James ascended the throne. He brought with him fears of a Catholic monarchy, and soon the old divisions of the Civil War stalked the country once again. In exile in Holland, James, Duke of Monmouth, believed that his time had come. He returned to England for the last fateful time, leaving forever his love, Henrietta Wentworth, and landing at Lyme Regis on June the 14th, 1685. Monmouth seemed to many to be the only hope for a Protestant crown, and the sturdy yeomen of the West Country flocked to his green standard. Picture the excited scenes in towns up and down Somerset, as men of substance, fearing no doubt for their lands and businesses as much as for the monarchy, encouraged the call to arms.
And dangerous too. In Taunton, 27 little maids from Taunton School presented banners to Monmouth's army, and each got a kiss for her trouble. A harsher reward followed. After the battle, even these children had to be ransomed by their well-to-do parents. Something like that may have happened here in Axbridge.
We know we'll return to Axbridge after the battle, but who knows what persuasion was needed to make men go. Two of the capital burgesses of the town raised the levy. Some men, perhaps, needed persuading to stay behind. Away, perhaps to join the clubmen. 10,000 were rumoured to be ready to support Monmouth. In the event, a mere 160 of this local militia joined him near Axbridge on June the 28th.
After all the farewells, no doubt they set off as men have always gone to battle, proud, determined, and not a little afeard. And what anxiety they left behind them.
The battle was a disaster. Monmouth tried to surprise the King's army by night at their camp near Weston's Island on Sedgemoor. Either by accident or by treachery, a musket shot raised the alarm. The rebels were cut to pieces by the King's horse and guns, and many drowned in the Reams as they tried to flee. In the following days, many were hanged without trial. Monmouth and a few friends fled for their lives. Monmouth's baggage made its struggling way across country. Tired horses and frightened men, finding little comfort from the people who so lately had cheered them on to battle. There are stories of looting and pillaging, perhaps even here in Axbridge.
Monmouth himself was captured on July the 9th, 4 days after the battle. He was beheaded on Tower Hill less than a week later. For his followers, it was 2 long months before Judge Jeffreys came to carry the king's vengeance into every corner of the West Country. What had been rebellion was now treason. There were 1,500 rebels in prisons up and down the land, and 7 of these were from Axbridge.
Five of the 7 were to receive no mercy, not even the much-feared sentence of transportation to the American colonies, there to live out their lives virtually as slaves.
Thomas Burroughs. Thomas Hillary. John Gale. Thomas Mundy. John Butcher. You have been found guilty in open rebellion against His Majesty. You will be taken to Chuteshelf by Axbridge, there to be hanged, drawn and quartered. Your bodies will be dipped in pitch and placed on a stake about the neighbourhood as a warning to rebels. God save the King.
The 2 who remain, John Lewis and Nathaniel Solway, are those capital burgesses of Axbridge, members of its ruling council, who raised the little band so cheerfully during the summer. They avoid the full penalty paid by their followers, but only at the price of being disenfranchised, ceremonially disbarred from ever holding office. As Queen Elizabeth's charter said, they were to remain burgesses only so long as they behaved well.
Now, the year is 1776. The wicked American colonists have thrown good King George's tea into Boston Harbor rather than pay his taxes. And the recruiting sergeant and his men are roaming the streets of England, bringing the king's shilling to tempt unsuspecting country boys to fight far away for king and country. But enough of that for now, for this is St. Barnabas' Day, and it's the Midsummer Fair, the greatest of all the 4 fairs granted to us in the far-off days of good Queen Bess.
The hiring fair is about to begin. Coachmen, grooms, osters, barmaids. And boys and ushers. Milkmaids, shepherds. There's the recruiting sergeant, lad. He'll give me the king's shilling and send me off to the Americas. His drummer is poor Joe Hill. His wife died of smallpox last year. Last year he was the drummer at the puppet show. Look at the Morris men go. They've been waving them handkerchiefs as long as I can remember.
Curfew sounds, Peter.
Not until the curfew bell sounds do the streets fall silent again. Axbridge at this time had 10 inns and less than 1,000 people. These 10 taverns caused more than their share of trouble. Hannah Moore lived at Cowslip Green, near Rington. And what business she had to call Axbridge a wretched, beggarly town, I don't know. But she went on, and on, and on.
The people of Cheddar were merely ignorant and stupid. But here, they were in addition self-satisfied and aggressive, and ruled over by an unfeeling, hard-hearted corporation given to fine clothes and luxury. But Holy Hannah was made of stern stuff, and she didn't despair of knocking some education and manners into these wild children. She wasn't helped by the example set by the rector of Axbridge, the Reverend Gould. She said, the Reverend Gould is about 60 years of age and is intoxicated about 6 times a week, and very frequently prevented from preaching by 2 black eyes honestly earned in fighting.
Still Hannah and her sister Martha kept at it, and on the 4th of August, 1791, they gave a huge picnic for all the children in their school here and in the neighborhood. 900 people were fed at this feast on Callow Hill, on 13 large pieces of beef, 45 great plum puddings, 600 cakes, several loaves, and a girt cask of beer.
despite the opposition of local people, especially farmers, who vowed that religion would be the death of agriculture. And the Reverend Gould was in time replaced by more respectable rectors.
Remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason, and plot. Here in Axbridge, we've always remembered the gunpowder plot. Every November the 5th, the mayor and corporation goes to church to give thanks for the preservation of King James I from that terrible plot against him in Parliament. But as soon as then corporation is safely in church, that's when the fun begins. for then it's time for bull baiting. The bull is driven out of the George Inn, up the High Street, then up West Street, and you may be sure everyone boards up their windows.
A Bristol newspaper report. On the 5th instant, Axbridge again witnessed the barbarous exhibition of bull baiting. Scarcely had the corporation entered the church, when in defiance of the authorities of that town, the animal was baited through the streets and through the marketplace. The Axbridge Union was a great workhouse, built in 1837 to house the poor and needy of many parishes. How many men and women must have thought, well, it's the Union at last, and believed that at least they could sink no lower. They were harshly treated, but once a year at least at Christmas they had better food, and once a year there might be an outing for the poor children. You could always tell who they were from their red, white, and blue uniforms. Union Jacks, the town's children used to call them. The babies were often to be seen in the care of a nanny in a specially built 6-seater pram. the iron horse, puffing, clanking and shrieking, reached Axbridge in 1869 with the opening of the Cheddar Valley Railway, the Strawberry Line. Now all could enjoy a day in Weston, shopping in Wells, or even a journey to London. Shoppers, school children, visitors, farmers going to market and workmen. Today, in the reign of King Edward VII, we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the opening of the railway.
Fire!
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 Fire! Fire!
Our very first pageant in 1967 celebrated the opening of the bypass along the line of the old railway, the final triumph of the horseless carriage over the iron horse.
Now it's 1990, and we're still here, proud of our forebears, proud of our inheritance, and our 2,000-year history. God bless Axbridge. May her spirit endure forever.
God bless Axbridge.
On behalf of the people of Axbridge, we would like to thank you for living the history of Axbridge with us. And we would like to present the lady who makes this a living history for you, the audience, and us, the cast, Anne Griffith.